You're listening to Out of the Box with Rosie Tran. Out of the Box is sponsored by hugmetees.com. Spread love, give a hug, hugmetees.com. Guys, we're now on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/outoftheboxpodcast. And as always, on Stitcher and iTunes, downloadable. We love comments and we love subscribers. I am here today with Davina Kotulski, author of Why You Should Give a Damn About Gay Marriage and Love Warriors, one of the leading marriage equality activists in the country, and also a life coach and therapist.
Yes. Yes.
I am so excited to have you here again.
Thank you, Rosie. It's great to be here with you again. Hello, everybody.
So for the listeners who don't know, and you wouldn't know, Davina was very awesome and came for an amazing podcast, and due to technical difficulties, it was lost into the realm of foreverness. So we get a encore presentation, but for you guys, it will be a premiere presentation.
Yeah, we're just trusting that everything is unfolding perfectly today.
It is. And right before we started recording, we were actually talking about relationships, and I love your point of view on it, and that we discussed, which is all of the bad relationships from our past were actually brought about to heal us and help us become better people.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Every relationship we're in, we learn and grow, and we learn more about ourselves and how we can be better people and better partners in the future. Yeah.
And I am so at ease talking with you about relationships, and it just seems that there's this stigma, you do marriage equality activism, and there's this stigma that gay couples or same-sex couples, or even, whatever the way people define their sexuality, are somehow different, or they're sexually deviant. But, I was just talking to you like a girlfriend, and I haven't had that experience, but I think there's still this fear in parts of America that there's, some inherent difference.
Yeah, and I think actually people are learning, the more same-sex couples they know, and the more that they are exposed to same-sex couples on TV. Like, I was catching up on Glee the other night, and just showing the different couples that we have the same issues. We're all looking to, how can we support each other as we go to work, and we do the things that we love? How do we deal with money issues? How do we deal with parenting issues?
You're just a person.
Just people.
You're not a unicorn or an elf or a troll.
And I think, it's been amazing just in my lifetime alone to watch how much, things have changed. Now we have marriage equality in so many states. We don't have it in all of the states yet, but over time things have changed so much, and people now know same-sex couples. They're out, they're getting married, they're settling down, they're having kids. And they're out of the closet. Not everybody, but many people. And so I think that is really showing just, heterosexual couples, same-sex couples.
It doesn't matter.
We all do. We all need to do our laundry and yard work, or whatever. Brunch on Sunday.
People listening to my podcast are pretty progressive, but maybe someone stumbles on who's from a more conservative area, and I want to talk about your activism because sometimes people like to focus on the negative, and there's been a lot of focus on, well, it should be legal by now everywhere. And I do agree with that. But you've come a long way. You're a little bit older than me. And what was it like coming out at, your personal coming out story?
Well, my personal coming out story, I came out in the 80s. I was in my teens.
What was the vibe back then? Was it still hostile?
It was very hostile. I came out in a small suburban high school area, and it was very challenging. And when I first realized that I had feelings for people of the same sex, actually, I didn't know what to do with it. I felt very ashamed and overwhelmed by it. And I began drinking, hoping that would make the thoughts go away, the feelings go away.
Did you think there was something wrong with you or something?
Oh, yeah. I mean, people that were gay were considered freaks, So all of a sudden, there was this part of me that was coming up that where did this come from? Who is, what is this? And so I had a lot of inner struggles with it. I got to the point where I actually contemplated suicide. I know that's not uncommon for many LGBT people, especially youth. And I got to that point, but then I sort of had this epiphany, and the epiphany was, I wasn't a particularly spiritual person at the time, but I just kind of got this, it was pretty instant. It was a spiritual epiphany that being gay was a gift. It was actually by divine design. I can use those words now. and that it was a unique, special quality about me that had been given to me by Spirit, and that I could either look at it one of two ways. I could either choose to deny the gift and kill myself, and
end it all,
or I could realize that this was a gift that that could be celebrated and be out and proud and move forward. Because what I realized was hiding actually made me feel worse. It made me feel dirty and like I had a secret. And once I came to that point of, you know what, I'm going to take this gift and I'm going to live and I'm going to stop drinking, which took a little bit of time to do, but I did. I have not had a drink since I was a teenager. But once I was willing to let that go and I said, okay, I'm going to come out, I'm going to tell everybody, I'm not going to hide this anymore, there was such an enormous sense of relief. And it's something that I still hear from people who are coming out in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s,
That they feel just totally relieved.
Oh, so free, so free.
Let's talk about a couple things that you said. One, it sounds like you were really just being who you are and not denying who you were at your essence and accepting yourself.
Yeah.
And that is something I think anyone, gay, straight, bi, transgender, whatever, can learn to live by, because I know for me, I denied my creative side. I know that isn't as deep or intense maybe as
I think it is different.
But for me, it was very intense because I grew up in a very conservative household where my parents wanted me to take a very traditional route. And even to this day, I love podcasting. I love bringing my message and positivity to people around the world. And my mom is not for, she's like, well, you should keep those thoughts private. You should keep things, you don't need to tell everyone. She doesn't even like me posting on Facebook. She's a very private person. And so even just to be, it brings me so much joy to bring these amazing topics to people all over the world. And,
it's so important.
It is. It's so important because I'm bringing awareness and yet my parents are still not accepting of that. So, so in a way, the lesson that you're providing isn't just an LGBT lesson. Yeah,
well, actually, so it's interesting that you should mention that, because one of the things I do focus on with people is I found with LGBT coming out that there are a lot of similarities for being your authentic self. And so people that are going into the arts, creativity, people who are very spiritual, psychic, that kind of thing.
You mean in your life coaching?
Yeah. So I've found that that people that many people live their lives in the closet and they're not living
not
their
necessarily
life.
A gay closet.
Exactly. So in my work, what I've done is I've transitioned over to also helping other people who are in the closet and they're having struggles. They know what they want to do in their heart, but there are obstacles from them living from their hearts. So
living authentically, living passionately, truly, honoring themselves.
That's right, because it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage to turn against the tide. I mean, just for you, Rosie, like you're expressing what you're saying, your parents wanted you to take a traditional route, whatever that meant in terms of a profession or college or, a secure job with a salary, medical leave, health benefits, all those things.
They wanted me to take, a very traditional path. And also they're just against me speaking out. I don't know why. I don't know if it's part of the Asian culture where you just are a good citizen and you kind of just, Asians are very, they, in general, we don't talk about stuff. I'm not Japanese, I'm Vietnamese, but for example, in Japanese culture, it's better to kill yourself, commit suicide, than to shame your family.
Right.
And that's a very common theme in Asian culture. You don't want to shame your family. You don't want to talk about problems, which is ironic because the way to deal with problems is to talk about them.
Well, and it's interesting you say that as well, because actually I have a lot of Asian Americans in my practice who are working through those things because they're the people in the family that are more outspoken or they want to take a different path and they want to be true to themselves. So I think that's
amazing. That's awesome.
So I think it's really important, it's, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, we are here now. We have this life now, and living in a way that honors our hearts, honors our true passion for life. It is frightening, but it is very freeing. It is very freeing to be your whole authentic self. But it does come with some blowback. I mean, just like when I came out at school, I had my life threatened. People tried to run me over in the parking lot. I was called names. whether you're going to experience that level of resistance to being your authentic self, or if those are just voices that are in your own head.
That happens a lot. Some people are their own worst enemy.
Exactly. Saying, well, what are you doing? Who are you kidding? You can't be an actor or a writer or a dancer or whatever it is. You should, or, a psychic, you're not going to make any money doing that or whatever. Yeah. You should go back and do this and have a solid career and be a part of the rat race. Well, what you're doing is you're honoring your heart. You're honoring your authentic path. I love that you said that, because
I don't know if you listen to the rat race episodes. I have like multiple episodes where I'm like, get out of the rat race.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think that's amazing. And I think that, that it's a very important thing, because so many people are not living from an authentic place, and it comes out in other ways, sarcasm, bitterness.
Absolutely.
I've met people that are clearly not living their life's purpose, and it comes and they think, oh, well, it's not affecting me. Yet you hear them making passive aggressive comments. These are the people who are going on YouTube. Maybe they wanted to be a singer, and then someone's singing on YouTube, and then they're leaving all these negative comments.
Right.
And they're thinking, oh, well, that doesn't have anything to do with me. This person's just a bad singer. No, I think you kind of have a deep-rooted issue that you never became a singer.
Yeah. And I think when you're following your courageous... So I'm writing a new book. It's called Journey of the Courageous Heart, From Fear to Fulfillment. When you are on that journey, and following your courageous heart, you have to learn to love yourself in all kinds of new ways, because you're putting yourself out there. And, you're going after your dream, but you have to understand, when we go after our dream, there's going to be failure. There are going to be obstacles. There's going to be
haters. There's going to be jealousy.
There's going to be some haters.
There's going to be some haters. I was just talking about this the other day. I have comments left and right on my YouTube videos. And it's just, people are jealous. It has nothing to do with me.
Right.
It's not that, it's just like, I'm sure, Davina, you have actors that you like and dislike. It has nothing to do with that person personally.
Yeah.
It's just we have our preferences or comments. But,
sure.
Luckily you're a whole person, so you're not going to go and attack the person. Yeah. But some people are not whole, like you said, or they haven't, not that they're not whole, everyone's whole, but that they haven't tapped into their wholeness.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't want to say that anyone is lacking, or because we all have the tools that we need inside of us, but
we're
they
all
haven't touched it.
Exactly, because inside of us we're all whole, perfect, and complete, but we have a lot of egoic stuff that keeps us from knowing
blocking
that we are.
Yeah.
Exactly, just clouding it, blocking it. So when you follow your path, yeah, people are going to make, cruddy comments. The more visible you are in the world.
Oh, yeah, of course.
You're going to just, get more. The brighter the light, the bigger the bugs, yes? So
I love that. I might make a meme for Facebook with your picture that says the brighter the light.
I have to credit my mentor, Reverend Joan Stedman, with that.
Okay,
she's one of the founders of Agape. But yeah, so, and the other thing too is that as you're putting yourself out there, it's important, if to follow your heart, you've got to have people that do support you and that believe in what you're doing.
So important. That's something that I learned in my journey, because I kept going to my parents for support and they weren't supportive, and I kept getting let down. And then someone said, well, why do you keep doing that? I said, well, they're my parents. They're like, but they're not supporting you. Right. So what about you use them in areas that they are supportive, and then you get to find other people in your life who are supportive of that, so that you don't keep getting let down. I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
And how did that work for you when you did that?
It was awesome. And a part of me is still kind of mourning. I'm still in the mourning process that I'm not able to go to my parents for those things. But, using my husband and some of my friends that do get me, I have a girlfriend. She's not even in the entertainment industry. She's just, I think, a secretary. I don't even know what she does. I think she's like a secretary, because she never talks about work. But, and she's totally supportive. And, I have another friend who works in real estate, and he's very supportive. And it's just, sometimes you can't get everything you want. It's like I was trying to get, wine from a beer glass or something. It's like you got to go to the wine bottle.
Yeah, there you go. You got to go to the source. Yeah. Well, and the reason that I ask you is that, have you ever heard of this metaphor? It's actually a true thing. If you put crabs in a barrel, and one crab starts to get out,
they all try to claw it down. I have heard that.
So, we're kind of like that. So if you are in a barrel with the same people that aren't also out there,
you're trying to reach that higher level.
Yeah, then you're going to be dragged down. So it's so important to have people and to go out and find people that are inspirational, that are working on empowering themselves and doing their work too.
And it's been such a shift to I just am so in love with my friends that I've met. It's like my extended family that I've created.
Nice.
Yes. I also
have to remember that you all can't see me nodding, so I need to say yes.
I know. I just had a guest and he was doing hand signals. And I was like, people can't see you. So I also wanted to mention something, not to go too dark, but you mentioned that you thought about killing yourself.
Yes.
And I want to talk about this because, you know, unfortunately, Robin Williams just passed away through killing himself. And there's been a big debate about it. And I wanted to touch on it because it's a topic that we rarely talk about. And it's a topic that's very misunderstood.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, after Robin Williams killed himself, I heard multiple people saying, well, you know, what did he have to be depressed about? He was successful. He was rich. Why? I don't get it. Why did he kill himself? And the amount of misinformation that I heard people commenting, not just on the blogosphere and online, but in my own life, was just shocking that a lot of people did not understand about mental illness and depression. Right. And first of all, I think that our system is totally not supportive for mental health, our mainstream traditional system. Yeah. Because, for example, I had been going to a therapist for years, and it helped me so much, and it felt like it made me healthier. Yet when I went to apply for insurance, I was docked because it was considered a pre-existing condition.
That's right.
Instead of preventative care.
That's actually why with my private practice therapy clients, I let them know that before they use their insurance, and I really encourage people to actually do private pay and not use your
isn't that just
your mental health insurance. It is crazy, but you have more privacy if they don't know what you're doing.
No, I understand that, but
they can also solicit your records.
It's just crazy because it's like if I go to the gym to maintain my body, that's considered preventative maintenance.
Absolutely.
But if I go to a therapist to maintain my mind, that's considered a disease. I didn't understand.
I think the fact that the HMOs have gotten involved with the mental health system, while it creates certain standards, in other ways it's actually really negatively impacted the field of psychology. Now, I could go on for days about that.
Let's go on, because it actually makes me very upset.
But you brought up Robin Williams, and first of all, I just want to say, he was somebody that touched everyone's lives in a very positive way. I mean, I remember watching Mork and Mindy. He touched our hearts. He made us laugh. He brought so much joy into our lives, and he was such a bright light. And I think that when we lose somebody, we all have a sense of there's grief, and grief can be complicated. Sometimes we just cry. Sometimes we get mad at the person for leaving. Sometimes we don't know what to do with that anger, and we take it out. So I think there's been all the things that have happened have been like some very complicated grief responses. The scariest thing is when people do copycat kinds of things and feel like, well, if he can do it, that sort of opens the field for me to take my own life as well. And I would just say, there are going to be times when you will feel like life is against you. You will feel like nothing is working out, and you can't see the good in yourself. I've certainly been there. I know
we've all been there, and I think that's something that should be talked about, because suicide is something that's kept under the rug.
That's right.
And in the closet, in the back corners, and every single person, I'm guaranteeing you, every single person has at least thought about it. That doesn't mean they've carried it out or made attempts.
Yeah.
But there's been times when we've been depressed. Maybe we lost a loved one. Maybe, your life just feels, maybe you're not being your authentic self, like you said, and you're just feeling, I'm down the wrong path. I don't know what to do. I feel totally lost. That is totally normal.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you get to that place, if you do feel like, you've been hiding yourself and you're not following your authentic path, or you are, and, you'll hit roadblocks and things don't seem to be moving as fast as you'd like, or you feel like you want to give up, I just really encourage people to, remember that, to reach out, because while you can't, maybe you're in a feeling tone of negativity, and if you reach out to other people, there are people that love you. It will pass. It is dark. Sometimes it feels like those dark nights of the soul go on for several days, but they will pass, just like the weather. You may have stormy days, and then the next day the sun will come out.
And sometimes it will even last 6 months, years. It can last for years, but that doesn't mean that's forever. And let me tell you, I have been in very dark places, and when I look back, it was some of the most emotionally positive places I could have gone, because the growth. Absolutely. It was it's like you're a caterpillar, you're turning to a butterfly.
Yes.
Sometimes there's a lot of icky whatever's in the cocoon.
Right, exactly. And you know, when you go from a place of being a caterpillar, so to speak, in your life, like let's say you're at the top of your game, your life's going well, you know what's happening, you've got that mastered. Oftentimes, spiritually, then that is when something else awakens in you, and you move to a different place. And everything that you've done, you might go through a phase of time where nothing works anymore. Everything in your life feels broken. It's not broken. You're just going through
evolving,
transformation.
growing, changing. Yeah.
And transformation is not 1 + 1 = 2 or 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. It goes from like 1 to 350. or 1 to ABCD. It becomes a totally different playing field. So
it does.
So while your things might look broken, like, wait, I used to have mastery over this. This used to go well in my life. Why isn't it working? Because you're completely shifting. And I write about that in the book, actually, that there's a period of time where we go through a huge grief. I mean, we don't know what a caterpillar, a chrysalis, and a butterfly go through, but on a human level, we know that when we've left that caterpillar stage of our life or development, and we're going through massive change and transformation, whether it be through choice, like we choose to leave a job, or we choose to go after a dream, or we get laid off, or go through a divorce or a death of a loved one, whatever it is, when that happens, there is still grief. And you have to go through the grief and get support from it, and to know that there will be another side, but it is a process and it can't be rushed. Just like if you take a chrysalis and you start peeling it away, the butterfly will die.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And this is all emotional intelligence stuff, which I strongly preach because I think our society does not emphasize it enough.
Right.
And it's up to all of us to take responsibility for our own emotions and learn that, it's not always going to be happy. There's different stages in different parts of our life, and that it's cyclical.
Yeah. And see, Rosie, you could be a psychologist. You don't have the training, but you certainly have the emotional intelligence.
It's called
and understanding.
A lot of self-work.
Yeah. And yet, so here you've gone a non-traditional path, and yet you are giving so much.
And I'm so happy. I'm actually look back at a lot of the horrible things that happened to me in my childhood in such gratitude. And that's why I want to tell people that these dark nights of the soul can be some of the most positive things that ever happened to you. I'm telling you, people, I was in Davina and I were just talking about this before I came here, but I didn't go into detail. Extremely abusive relationship, was verbally abused, emotionally abused, physically abused by this person, felt trapped, was just... And I had a wake-up call. I was like, what? Why am I choosing? Yes, I could say this person was crazy. They had problems. They were violent. But it all came down to me. And not that it was my fault. I don't want to say that women that are abused, it's their fault. It was my responsibility, which is, there's a difference.
Right.
And I needed to say, wait a minute, what is it about me that I'm choosing to... I can just walk out the door.
Yeah.
This isn't, I'm not married to the guy. Uh-huh. This isn't the Middle East where there's some weird law and I can just literally walk out the door and not take this anymore.
Yeah.
And it was like a wake up call. And I went through a lot of emotional stuff, like you said. And then when I realized that my attraction to this person had nothing to do with the person, it had to do with my own self-healing.
Yes.
That's when I woke up.
Right. You had to sort of ascend to a higher vibration. And I know some of you are like, what vibration? But you had a
higher version of myself.
A higher version of yourself.
To see that I was on such a low level that I would attract and continue to stay with someone who was at such a low level.
And to clean out all those areas of yourself where you felt you were worthless or unworthy, to get rid of those and to know your fullness. So yes, you could leave that person behind. And I think a lot of us do that. We attract people where we are sort of emotionally. They sort of resonate with whatever it is we're working through.
And we're so attracted to that. It's so Marie Osmond says that. She says you don't date or marry someone who's at your level. You date or marry someone who's at your self-esteem level.
So true.
So true.
So true. And I should say, I've worked with a lot of professionals, and a lot of professionals are actually masking senses, a sense of inadequacy or insecurity. And so we can be really accomplished. Like, I don't know.
External success.
Right. I don't know what, they've come out with saying Robin Williams had Parkinson's and whatnot. But even if you have incredible external success, that doesn't mean that you can't still feel empty inside. It doesn't mean that you may not have places where you still feel like inadequate, and that striving to be perfect because you don't feel that peace imperfection inside yourself. Yeah. I mean, I remember, gosh, I would think I was about 36, maybe. Yes. Older here. I was about 36 and I had my PhD. I had my government job. I had my 6-figure salary. I had my house. I had my car.
Whoa, you paid 6 figures working for the government?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was a psychologist for the federal government. And I got to this place and I was like, wow, I did all these things. I'm a doctor. I'm this and that and the other thing. I did all these things that I thought, I was supposed to do. And I'm like, well, why do I feel so bad inside? Why do I still feel so bummed out? And I was realizing, well, I did all these things for achievement, and they were things that for my ego, they weren't the things of my soul. And my soul really wanted to be free.
Oh
and while I was extremely successful and, and I'd published my first book and was out there speaking, nationally, internationally about marriage equality and all those things, there was just something that still wasn't right. So I had to basically knock the house down and rebuild the foundation.
I want to talk about what you just said because it's so profound and it's so true. And I think that there's two different forms of success. There's egoic success and then there's authentic success.
Yeah.
And that happened with me with my stand-up because I was doing stand-up and I was trying to make people laugh to validate myself. To prove to myself that I was funny, that I was worthy, to get the attention, to get the validation. And after I started doing the personal development work, I shifted my perspective from getting something, getting praise from the audience, getting laughs, to giving. And that's when it became authentic. And now, even if I have a bad show, Davina, I always have a good time because my intention is always to go up there, have a blast, and make people laugh. And even if the crowd doesn't get me or only some people get me, I always have a blast.
So how do you, so knowing that, having been a stand-up comic or still being a stand-up comic, what do you guess about Robin Williams? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm not him. I'm not inside his head or so I can't say, but what I feel is that he was someone who had a great amount of love to share and maybe was sharing it for the wrong reasons, was maybe sharing it to fulfill, like you said, that achievement, that egoic, which many...
Or sense of emptiness.
Sense of emptiness instead of saying healing inside. And it's such a, cliche to say, happiness was within, but it is. If you're not feeling a hole inside, it's going to manifest in other ways. And I have met people now through the personal development arena that are successful the authentic way, where they're creating from love, from joy, from happiness, and not creating because they need joy, they need love, it's just a different energy.
Yeah, it really is. And I think there's, spiritually we're moving in the direction of being okay with knowing that today our needs are met and less of the hoarding behavior. I mean, we've got Costco, we've got all these places.
I know, it's crazy.
Buy everything, and really, there's, we waste so much money in trying to be secure and protect ourselves and stock up and all these things. But
it's
really,
like a fight or flight, basic human, very base human thing.
Right. And yet when we are just focused in the moment, and we have to obviously pay our bills and those kinds of things, but also just remembering right here and right now, our needs are met, that they will be met, and to not terrorize ourselves.
You're alive. You have air, you have water, unless you are stranded on a desert island or in some type of physically, destructive place or a war zone, which some people are, unfortunately.
Yes. Yeah.
But if you're not, which is 80% of the world isn't a safe place, then there's no reason to be in that mania.
Right. So I think the ego does a lot of stockpiling of things to make sure it's okay. So stockpiling money, stockpiling resources, all of these things. And so we need a lot of money to be able to afford those things. This whole tiny house movement, for example, right? Where people are realizing, I'd rather have less space, physical house space to pay for and clean and take care of, and more time and energy and money to just be free.
Me.
Right. You don't want your house to become your prison and you're struggling so hard to keep it. So I think we're shifting here as a culture.
There is a huge shift. And I think the financial crisis and the greed with Wall Street and some of the other stuff also helps people to wake up a little bit. I'm not anti-Wall Street. I do, but I am anti-corruption.
Yes, absolutely. There was one point I wanted to make real quick here. So when I was doing the marriage equality work, part of what I did as a leader was to help people find their voice and to share their stories. Because when we find our voice and we share our stories, then we can change hearts and minds. And so I spent a lot of time working with people on that. And what I know is that when we speak our truth, even if it sounds pretty crazy to somebody else at first, the more we speak our truth, the more we follow our truth, other people will eventually come along. If we feel funny about what we're doing, if we feel embarrassed, or if we feel like, oh gosh, this spiritual path is weird, or this creative path is, flaky, or whatever it is, then other people...
We'll put that energy forward.
We'll put that energy forward. That's right. And so I just really encourage people to remember to speak your truth and to learn how to be confident and heal those places of doubt within yourself. Because if you go to other people, like you said, your parents, for example, they weren't able to support you. So it's like we've got to support ourselves first and then find those other people that will support us. And the ones that can't see it eventually, they will either get along with the program or they'll stop being as...
in your life.
Exactly. That's one thing. They'll drop out of your life.
Which is sometimes a good thing.
It's sometimes a blessing.
I want to talk about what you just said about... healing yourself and putting yourself first, because what I've noticed, and now there is a shift, and there has been a shift, and I don't know if it was because of the 60s and the me generation and all this other stuff, but there is still this ideology that taking care of yourself first is selfish.
Yeah, I heard it the other day. I was doing I teach a writing class, writing coaching class, and somebody was saying, "Oh, I feel so selfish putting aside time for my writing."
No.
And I'm like, well, actually, how do you feel after you write? Well, I feel peaceful. I feel more energized. I feel happier. I'm like, well, isn't that a better self to take forward into the world? Isn't that like you're actually giving more when you've sourced yourself, when you've fed yourself first, and now you have the energy, as opposed to giving on empty and
you're tired and worn out. I hear this a lot with moms. Well, I just don't have time for myself. It's all about my kids. Let me tell you something, moms out there. I can tell you right now, as a former recovering kid with a mom that had that mentality, it does not serve you. My mom was always running around with her head cut off, and it made us feel as children like we were a burden. And so you don't want your kids to feel like they're a burden. You want them to feel like they're a gift. And when you run around, like you said, half empty,
yes,
that's how people are going to feel, because there were times when my mom said, well, I just don't have time for myself. I don't have time for myself. And as a little kid, I remember as a little 7-year-old girl, me thinking, well, go take time for yourself.
Empower yourself, Mom.
Yeah, I was like, I can, and she would say, well, you can't do this by yourself. You need me to, and I would tell her, and I would say, no, Mom, go take time for yourself. And she would say, no. So a lot of times the people in our life are actually giving us permission to take care of ourselves, because that is the natural order to love yourself first.
Absolutely. Yes. And so for example, a lot of people won't meditate because they think, oh gosh, I can't sit still and do nothing. There's so many things to do. But everyone says that if you meditate, and they found this, if you meditate
10 or 15 minutes, right?
10 or 15 minutes, that's it. You will feel so refreshed, and you will actually be more focused and more efficient the rest of your day.
It's the same thing with napping. I think the napping cycle is about 20 to 40 minutes, and you will be refreshed. It's all about taking time for yourself.
Taking time for yourself. And I have a colleague who's a principal up at a charter school up in Oakland, and they teach the kids how to meditate.
Oh,
so
that's great.
They're calmer. So, moms, dads, whoever, sit down with your kids, teach them how to meditate. Meditate together. You need some time to yourself to read a book or to write. Do the same thing. Show your kids, hey, let's do a little journaling. You write down about your day, and I'll write down about mine.
And I want to clarify to listeners, there's this differenceness. So if you're not sure if you're being selfish or self-loving, let me explain. Any self-love is always healthy. Any selfishness is always healthy. So that doesn't mean go off on
Unhealthy.
a cocaine binge or something because you like doing cocaine. Well, if it's destroying the people in your life and yourself,
that's right.
That's selfishness.
That's right. Selfishness is unhealthy. Yes.
Selfishness is unhealthy. So if you're, going out and drinking and spending all of your family's money on alcohol, if you're,
going on shopping sprees.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
But, that is considered selfishness. Self-love is taking time for yourself to heal yourself. Nurture.
That's right.
So that is the difference.
Eating well, making yourself a salad.
Writing, like you said.
Doing exercise,
things,
meditation, absolutely.
So there is a difference. But unfortunately, in some of our society, some self-love has been labeled selfish.
Yeah, and I think selfishness might fill an empty space. Like if you do something selfish, it will fill an empty space, like racking up credit card debt by shopping sprees or overeating or whatever. But doing things that are self-nurturing and self-loving, they will make you feel actually whole and renewed. Absolutely.
That's awesome. I love the place that this is going, but I want to utilize you for what you are, Davina. Sure. I want to talk a little bit more about the activism.
Yeah.
Because I want people to know what's going on out there and hopefully shift some hearts and minds towards the marriage equality side, because our country is still not where I think it should be.
Well, thank you. I agree. I think we're not there either, but we're just getting so much closer, which is wonderful. Well, back in 1996, I met the woman that I wanted to marry. And so we fell in love. And of course, at the time, the DOMA was passed, which took away the right for same-sex couples to marry anyway and anywhere. And so after falling in love, I was like, well, we've got to change the laws. And I'm just going to share this with you because I think it's important that people know that, yes, as Margaret Mead said, a handful of people can make a gigantic difference in the world. So please, you can be a leader, even if you don't feel like a leader, even if you've never done leadership things. By you speaking out and standing in your truth, you will change the world. You will be proactive and change the world. So what happened was we decided we wanted to get married, even though it was against the law. We went down to San Francisco City Hall.
I just want you to know that sounds crazy. I don't know, just the phrase that you said, we wanted to get married even though it was against the law. I feel like we're in 1950 segregation.
Yeah, well, and it certainly was not violent in the way, thank God, it was not violent in the way that segregation was on the physical level. Emotionally, spiritually violent, absolutely. So we wanted to get married, and so we planned a wedding, and everywhere we went, we talked about it, and so we came out everywhere. And so all of these different people, the jeweler, the cake people, had to deal with, here's a same-sex couple that wants to get married. And so I remember one place that we were going to have our wedding cake made, they kept saying birthday cake, and we thought maybe it was a language barrier. No, our wedding cake. And they're like, birthday cake. And they were couldn't wrap their head around the idea of two women getting married.
I don't want to laugh at you because it's such a horrible thing, but it just reminds me, were they immigrants?
I'm not sure.
Okay, because it just reminds me of my parents. My brother is actually gay, and he was with his husband for 12 or 15 years, I think, and they got divorced, and now he's with another gentleman. But my parents always referred to it as his friend. Yeah. And I'm like, no, Dad, this is, they were married. I said, that was his husband. Yeah. And my parents say, oh, him and his friend.
Right. So
that reminds me of the birthday cake thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so giving people language, which was great that you said husband, because it was amazing. I was married for close to 15 years too. And people would say your girlfriend or your special friend. No, this is my wife. We are legally married. And anyway.
No, my dad would always say, oh, him and his friend, his little friend. I'm like, no, Dad, his hubby. Yeah, which over time is actually quite demeaning. It's like, this tendency of white men to call African-American men boys. Yeah. It's a way of demeaning and taking away people's power and legitimacy. And it's not, you can't just say, oh, I made a mistake. It's really important that people look at their language. And and still people will say when I talk about my ex-wife, oh, your friend. Oh my God, I'm not calling your ex-husband your friend. Yeah. Maybe you should.
Which is another story.
Maybe you should.
I need more coffee here.
So you guys went to get a marriage certificate.
That's right. Actually, the first thing we did was we rode in what's called Dykes on Bikes in San Francisco, the San Francisco Gay Pride Parade. She wore a wedding dress, I wore a tux, and we held up a sign that said support same-sex marriage. And it was unbelievable. We got so much support. I have never in my life at that point in my life was I ever congratulated and smiled upon for loving another woman. Up until that point in my life, it was,
violence, aggression.
That's right.
Negative comments.
Exactly.
You're like, this is great.
It was so beautiful. It was so heart opening to have people say congratulations and smile and whatnot. And we ended up on the cover of the San Francisco Examiner paper, and they didn't know our names, but that was the big cover picture.
Did you save it?
Oh yeah, I got it framed. Yeah, and it's One Archives has a copy too, which is the LGBT archives in Los Angeles. Anyhow, so then after that, we started going to San Francisco City Hall and asking for marriage licenses, and they would deny us the right to marry. And this was 2001, 2002, 2003. we would go, we'd ask, and then at one point we turned to the guys behind us. There was a gay male couple behind us, and so they said, no, we can't marry you. So each of us grabbed one of the guys and came forward and said, can we have a marriage license? And they said, yeah, here. And I said, excuse me, sir, what is your name? Because, I can marry you, but I don't even know your name. And just the absurdity of the laws that because, it was one man, one woman, that I could marry a complete stranger to me, but the person that I'd spent my life with, that I owned a home with, I could not have a marriage license with. It was ridiculous. And so we kept coming in. I said, we're just going to keep coming until you change the law. And I tried to be friendly, but also firm. And the clerk said, well, we hope you do. And as soon as you change the law, we will give you a license. And you seem like nice people.
Oh, that's sweet.
Flash forward, 2004, February 10th, we hear on the news, Gavin Newsom, something about Gavin Newsom and the marriage law. I had actually sent him an email because he was the new mayor, and I said, will you come out and speak at our rally that we're doing? And, was it Willie Brown before? He always supported us and never heard anything back. Well, then February 12th comes around. We get ready to go and do our marriage license ask, and we go down to San Francisco City Hall, and just as we're walking up the steps...
This is your annual walking up the steps.
That's right.
Okay.
And it's the 4th year in the row. Okay. So just put that out there, folks. 4 years, we're already making change. Okay. So, which I know probably seems like a really long time, and it is, and yet it was for that to change the law, to have something change like that was phenomenal. Anyway, I'm jumping to the what happened here. Dale Martin, Phyllis Lyon, they're walking down the steps. They've been together for 50 years. They're a very famous lesbian couple. They hold up their marriage license. We've just been married. The first same-sex couple in the country to be legally
Did you know?
married.
It was just a coincidence that was the anniversary of the day that you guys walked up the steps to get your task.
So
right?
it's called Freedom to Marry Day, and we were going down every February 12th or February 14th, which was Valentine's Day. So those were the 2 days we were working with. And so here they come down the steps, and we're going to have our rally. We start our rally, and then we're like, well, rally canceled. Let's go inside. And so my former wife and I, we were couple number 17. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, and the people that had denied us a license were smiling.
Was it the same clerk?
The same people, and they were handing us the license. And it was fantastic. Actually, you can see some of that on the documentary Freedom to Marry.
Okay,
movie. And also Pursuit of Equality is another documentary ran.
Okay, so I know that it is legal in some states, and there's some states that are, you brought me the marriage equality map, which I will post online.
Yes.
But I want to talk about civil unions, because we talked about this before, but unfortunately that information was lost.
Yeah.
What about people who say, well, why don't we just give you guys civil unions? It's the same thing. What's the big deal? Then that way the religious, or anti-gay marriage sect are fine with it, and then you guys get civil unions. Like, what's the big deal?
So in this country, you can have a civil marriage or you can have a religious marriage, but what is registered with the state is a piece of paper that is actually a civil piece of paper. Mm-hmm. But you can be married by a justice of the peace, or so in a civil ceremony, or you can be married by somebody who is a religious person, minister, rabbi, imam, etc. And the religious person has they have been granted the gift or the right by the state to officiate. But what's registered with the state or the government, the federal government and state government, is a civil piece of paper. So we're asking for a civil marriage. Religious marriage, it will be done by, there's a separation of church and state. So if there are certain religious facilities that do want to marry same-sex couples, they have the right to do that. Those that don't want to can absolutely refuse. So right now, the Mormon Church, the Catholic Church, Orthodox Jewish rabbis, they do not marry same-sex couples. They don't want to, and unless the church doctrine or their doctrine changes, they don't ever have to. However, there are some spiritual people like Reverend Michael at Agape, the Unitarian Universalists, many Congregational church ministers, Episcopalians. They do want to perform a religious blessing, and they do have a right to do that. And then
so you're just saying, hey,
we
just want equal protection under the law, the same rights as everyone else. We're not asking for some crazy, special exception.
Yes.
We just want, I'm a person, here's another person, regardless of sex, gender, sexual orientation or identification.
Yes.
And I just want the same legal protections, because there are a lot of rights that people have under marriage that are not protected under a civil union.
Right. And actually civil unions they're actually going there. I think there may be only one state left that has civil unions. So all the states that created civil unions as a separate but equal notion to marriage, all of those states have marriage now, and they dissolve their civil unions because civil unions are unconstitutional. They create a separate and unequal category, just like two water fountains. If you have two water fountains, one says white people, one says people of color. It discriminates against a group of people. It creates two different categories of people. Even though it's the same water fountain, it's the same, same water coming out of those fountains, it is marginalizing one group and creating the effect that one group is superior to the other group.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say you've got two water fountains, and somebody wants holy water. Right, so that's got to be blessed by. Okay. So you can have.
You're just asking for the regular water fountain.
You can have one water fountain that is for everybody, and then if somebody wants a special holy water, then you go to that person to have your holy
good
water.
Good metaphor. Okay, so that explains it, and I think, I just think that it makes me laugh because. Obviously, my point of view is that gay marriage and same-sex marriage should be legal, because obviously it's one person and another person. But it just makes me laugh when you're explaining this to me, because I want the listeners to hear the information, but to me it's almost absurd.
It's quite absurd. And even the notion of when couples who were from different races were married, they didn't get an interracial marriage license. They didn't get an interracial civil union. They didn't get an interracial domestic partnership. Once the laws were changed, they got a marriage. That's right. Now, so we've got this notion in California of these domestic partnerships, which was actually created as an alternative in California, in Berkeley, of all places, in the I think it might have been even the 70s. It was very early on, to give benefits to same-sex, specifically folks that worked at the university, to give their unmarried partners these benefits. Now, domestic partners are kind of sticking around because it's a category that is available for heterosexual couples where one person is over 65, and if they remarried, they'd lose their Social Security, survivor benefits, or they would,
So it's not unequal under the law. It's heterosexual, or...
Well, what was interesting was that for a while, same-sex couples could have a domestic partnership regardless of their age, but heterosexual couples had to have one person over 65. So like my friends Mandy and David wanted to be domestic partnered, but they didn't have a right to do that because they're a heterosexual couple and neither of them are over 65. So it was discriminating against, young... Right, because they want to force young heterosexual people to marry and deny marriage to same-sex couples. That was the game. So I think at some point, domestic partnerships may again just be sort of a convenience for folks who are over 65 who don't want to be remarried because again they don't want to lose their former spouse's military pension or things of that nature. So it's a very strategic financial move.
I'm so sad because I wanted you to tell your story, and I can't even remember how we got into it, but how you went to some protest and the guy was like, if gays get to marry, then I should marry this rock or something.
Yeah. February 14th, 2004. We had a rally up in Sacramento, and it was already planned. We didn't know Gavin Newsom was going to do what he did, where people were going to be waiting in line, stretching around the blocks in San Francisco. We had planned this event probably 8 months in advance, and it was a rally at the state capitol. Margaret Cho came. She's awesome. She's a wonderful comedian. If you don't know who Margaret Cho is, folks, check her out. She's great. She's been an incredible advocate for same-sex marriage, incredible advocate for years, decades, actually. So she was there speaking. We had lots of religious folks speaking there. Senator Leno spoke there. Anyway, at the rally, there's a guy, and he's standing next to a potted plant, a large potted plant.
I remember the story. Yeah.
And he's like, I want to marry this tree. And then some other jerk, I want to marry this dog. And it's really funny on one respect. So, I bless the laughter. On another respect, it's so absurd because it's dehumanizing
another person.
Yeah.
You're comparing a person to a potted plant.
Yeah.
I just want to know, because I have never to this day, I have never to this day heard a good argument, logical argument against it. Those are the type of arguments I've heard. I've heard, oh, well, if gay people get married, what's next? Marrying a dog, marrying a rock.
Yes.
Marrying multiple people, what's next? First of all, I say if you want to marry multiple people, that's fine with me as well. I really don't care. Well, how would it get divided? Well, you would hire a lawyer and divide it evenly. I don't know, but it's the arguments. I'm not just saying this to, push our point of view. I'm being honest with you. I'm not gay. I don't have any, reason to push same-sex marriage, but to me, it just seems logical to give everyone the same rights if that's what we're saying, that we are a democracy and we're giving everyone equal rights.
Absolutely. Well, it's a way of, because part of it is dehumanizing gay people and believing that gay people are not real and we don't have equal feelings and that we don't love in the same way. Being denied the right to form, healthy, open, not open in the sense of multiple partner relationships, but out in the open relationships where people know, hey, this is my spouse, this is who I am. When people were had to hide their sexual orientation and hide their sexuality, there weren't models of what two loving same-sex what a loving same-sex
they were
couples look like.
marginalized. You would see the gay guys with the chaps and the stereotypes, very stereotypical sexual deviancy.
Right. It's kind of like if you went to Mardi Gras and you decided, if you went to Mardi Gras and you said, oh, this is what straight people are like 365 days of the year. These women can't keep their shirts on. Why are these guys so horny and they're throwing, beads at all these ladies? Right. If we looked at Mardi Gras and decided that that's how heterosexual people were 365 days a year,
but they'll look at the gay pride parade and say, look how gay people are, their sexual deviance, this and that. And I actually, and I think that the slippery slope arguments come from, well, what about, raising kids? The kids will be confused. No, they won't. I know a same-sex couple who has raised a child, and the psychology that proves it does not matter. The only thing that matters is that the parents are loving.
Yes.
And that they're caring and that they're there. And it's actually better to have a same-sex couple raising a child than to have a single mother, unfortunately.
Well, what's interesting, I don't want to bash single mothers, because I know
I don't want to bash single moms, but
I know you're not.
It's very hard for single moms to raise children.
No, that's true. That's true. Not having support.
Yeah, not having the support.
Exactly.
I didn't mean it as single moms are bad.
No, and I didn't get that you did. And so let's be really clear. Yes, absolutely. Being a single parent has its challenges because you don't have other support. Absolutely. Just like if you don't have extended family members involved.
It's about the support, not about the
Yeah. So absolutely. So that being said, there's so much literature out there now that has looked at couples, same-sex couples raising children. The psychiatric associations, the American Psychological Association, there are studies that have been done by legitimate researchers showing that actually children are not harmed at all, and in some cases they are doing better. So
they're not harmed.
I don't want to brag about us people, but sometimes we're better parents. Okay,
they're not harmed at all as long as it's a loving couple. It doesn't matter the sex,
That's
and
right.
the children are not confused at all. And there's absolutely, the scientific evidence supports it, no correlation between having a same-sex parents and having homosexuality in the children.
That's right. And sexual orientation is
chosen.
What they have found is that
or whatever,
children of LGBT parents are actually more compassionate, though, and they're more compassionate and they're more accepting of other diversity. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So they're actually better citizens in some ways because they're kinder.
Maybe because, they have to deal with the discrimination.
Yeah.
And they have to see their parents dealing with discrimination. So, because I have heard that as an argument, and I just wanted to debunk it with, because I have heard that as an argument. Well, if there's a same-sex couple and they have children or they adopt children, the children will be confused. And that is another discrimination that it is not marriage. Mm-hmm. Because in many cases, only one spouse can adopt the child.
That's right.
And so the other parent doesn't have the legal rights.
Yeah. So with marriage, though, marriage actually, one of the rights that come with marriage is parentage. So if a couple's married and they have a child together, it belongs to both of them. So many couples, it's kind of like they do want to go through the legal hoops of doing a formal adoption. So in some ways, it's like wearing suspenders with belts. But at the same time, if you move suspenders and a belt, but if you move to
I was like, wait, what is that?
If you move to certain states that don't have marriage rights, then all of those marriage rights that you had in California, let's say you go to Montana, they can be challenged. They can, absolutely. So you can be denied the right to visit your spouse in the hospital. You can be denied car insurance, marital benefits. You can be denied the right to make medical decisions for that person. You could, your parentage rights could be. There are over 300 rights in each state that have to do with marriage, and 1,138 federal rights that come with marriage in this country. What I can tell you, though, is that we will have full marriage equality in this country. By 2020 for sure. I have absolutely no doubt we are moving in that direction. But right now, those places that don't have it, and that patchwork quilt, it is hurting people. People are losing homes. People are families are breaking up. The amount of stress, the financial stress, because they don't have access to those rights, it is deeply impacting real life couples and their children. And so we've got to change these laws. It is inevitable, but we can speed up this process by speaking out about it, by getting involved.
Right to your, congressmen, senators, governors, whoever, because we do make a difference. People do make a difference. I have had council members respond to my, emails and messages. Yes. They just had President Obama. He had 4 different people writing to him, and he actually went and met with them. That doesn't always happen, unfortunately, but it does happen.
Yes, and if you're a part of a group, you can pass non-binding resolutions. So let's say you're in a state that does not allow same-sex marriage. You can get together with your city council, with your university group, with your church group, whatever it is, and you can pass a non-binding resolution and say, this facility, this organization, we come out in support of marriage equality for everybody, and that is what changes hearts and minds. We actually, that I hate the cliche, but it's really true. When the people lead, the leaders will follow. And that's what we learned. Getting so excited here. That's what we learned. You got to go out there and you show up and you will get leaders to take risks. And Gavin Newsom took a huge risk in 2004. Today, not so big of a risk. And look where he's at. He's a lieutenant governor. At some point, he'll be our governor. At that time, after he did that, people said, he ruined his career. He's such a rogue, blah, blah, blah. He is a man of courage. He is a man of courage, and that's what we need to do.
He was forward thinking.
Absolutely.
I think it will be legal. I agree with you. Most people below a certain generation have no stigma associated with homosexuality.
Right.
Luckily, the newer generations, the millennials and other people with the World Wide Web and all this internationalness connecting us with technology, people are just seeing, hey, people are people.
That's right.
And so luckily the younger generations have their eyes wide open, and the older generations are starting to change with the times as well.
Yes,
and
they are.
I think that it will be legal. And guys, I really want you to write letters to anyone and everyone that can make a difference, because if your local area does not have legal rights for everyone.
And also one last thing, just, it's interesting, the term homosexual or homosexuality, it has been taken out of the papers. You can't use that terminology unless you're talking about a clinical thing. When we're
really?
Yeah. So just like that. So better to say gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender than the shorthand of homosexual. I know it sounds.
Is it like saying Oriental?
It is. It is. Yeah. So thank you so much for asking that. Yeah. And so at one point it made sense, and I know it sounds like it would seem like we say heterosexual couples, but it's better to say gay or same-sex couples.
Okay, got it.
But
I'm learning something.
I know it's really funny because we don't say heterosexual and homosexual, we say gay and straight.
Got it.
Yeah. And
am I offending you, Davina? I'm sorry.
No, it's absolutely an opportunity to just educate people, because it seems like you would say heterosexual couples and homosexual couples, because it seems like parody, or not parallel, yeah, not a parody, but
parody,
but
not parody.
Yeah, but it's actually preferable to say gay or same sex.
Okay,
Yes,
got it.
yes.
Got it. Guys, I'm learning something new every day. Davina, where can people find you online? What's your website? Where can people get amazing life coaching about their lives, whether, whatever issue they're dealing with, and, support if they are LGBT and they need to come out of the closet or whatever?
That's a great question. They can go to my website, and it's my name. It's Davina, Davina Kotulski, KOTULSKI.com. If you can't find that, you can always track me through whygaymarriage.com or comeoutintoyourpower.com.
Guys, just Google her. I didn't know how to spell her last name at all. And I just Googled her, and Google said, "Did you mean Kotulski?" I was like, yes, I did, Google.
I know. It's a complicated
It knew.
name.
It actually knew. I Googled Davina Kotulski, and I totally butchered your last name. And Google said, "Did you mean?" And it had the right spelling. And I clicked on it, and I was like, oh, there she is.
Okay. And you know what? I want to offer a gift to your listeners. So if you contact me and you send me an email, which you can do right through my website, and if you say that you heard this on Out of the Box with Rosie, then what I'll do is I'll give you a free download on how to come out of the closet into your power.
Oh, guys, do that. Take advantage of it.
And again, you just translate it to what if you're not LGBT, don't worry. Just translate it to whatever issue you're having challenges around being your authentic self with.
Oh, wow. I'm going to do that now. I'm going to go download that. Okay. Thank you so much, Davina. You've been absolutely awesome. Guys, please visit outoftheboxpodcast.com and click on the support button. We now have affiliates on there. If you guys use it, then it helps us out a lot. Also, Out of the Box podcast is on SoundCloud now. We need more followers. Click on the follow button. And as always, Stitcher and iTunes downloadable. Out of the Box podcast is sponsored by hugmetees.com. Spread love, give a hug, hugmetees.com. This has been Out of the Box with Rosie Tran.